Mounce, BBG, chapter 17, verse or sentence 6 starts with that second person personal pronoun. Hopefully you recognize by now that that's in the nominative case, because if you work down that, you know it's singular because of the sigma. But I mean, if you were trying to do process of elimination at this point, hopefully you look at that and you say, well, okay, if it were genitive, I'd be expecting omicron upsilon. If it were dative, I'd be expecting an iota somewhere. And in the accusative, both for the first and second person, you have that epsilon ending. And so it's none of those. So even if I think this is kind of odd, I'm probably going to come away going, it's probably nominative. In which case it also lines up, because if you know it's a second person personal pronoun, and you go to your verb and you look at the ending of your verb and you say, well, okay, oise aminetiusi, like I learned it, or even if you just learned it as the sigma ending, you'd be going, okay, that's second singular, which needs to line up with a u. Well, that's what you have. So bottom line is pistuo is from pistuo, which is I believe. So in this case, it's you believe. You believe, and of course in the context it's a single person. That's part of that discussion that James is sort of creating there in James 2. So you get to the hati and you say, well, okay, hati is either because or that. Well, if you remember, when you have hati following a verb of communication or cognition, usually what you have is the hati introducing the content of that communication or cognition. So that's what you have here is you believe. What is it that you believe? You believe that. And then here is, again, you believe X. And this is, this is the content of the belief is heis est and ho theos. So you basically are using hati as that marker to say like indirect discourse, but again, because it follows in this case, a verb of cognition. So once again, verbs of cognition and communication, verbs of communication and cognition will often be followed by a hati that is going to introduce the content of that communication or cognition. So that's why you're going to translate them as that. So you believe that, and then you have, if you just did it one by one is God, but here you have an adjective, and here you have a noun. So, and this noun, not only is this the noun, but this noun has definite article. Once you see that, you really ought to be telling yourself that this is the subject, even though it's after the verb and there's something else that's nominative before the verb. You still ought to be saying, well, this one's got the definite article and it's a noun. So what you ought to do in that case is you ought to say that here's the subject, here's the predicate, and what that makes this is the predicate adjective. So, in that case, what is it that you believe? You believe that God is one. And again, you should know haste now, because look at that rough breathing mark, and that's your giveaway. Haste me a hen is your lexical entry there. If you were to look in the lexicon, it's going to be haste me a hen for masculine, feminine, neuter. So as soon as you see haste, you ought to be able to spot that as the nominative form, and of course it's only singular because it means one. But bottom line is you believe that God is one, and haste here is actually the predicate adjective, and what tells you that is that this is an adjective, this is a noun, this has a definite article. So in that scenario, you're going to put the noun first, especially because it has the article, or the definite article, and then take the adjective as a predicate adjective. Okay? So you believe that God is one, and then you have he gives you well, and then you have another verb. The difference here is pistuo you know, just as kind of a standard form, and you see the pistuace, you got the acute accent there. Poiase, you're looking at that and you're kind of going, okay, what's going on? You got this circumflex. Well, you know, memorize the lexical entry, the lexical form, and you got poieo. And as soon as you say poieo, you know you're talking about a contract verb. So in this environment, the main thing you need to recognize is the sigma tells you again that he's looking like here. It's looking at a second singular, but the circumflex tells you that it's doing one of several things. Once you know the lexical form and you go, okay, he's talking about poieo is the, you know, what I memorized, then you know that the circumflex is telling you that it's a contract verb and it's just a standard present active indicative. You do well. All right. So you believe that God is one. You do well. Here's one that a lot of students make a mistake about because they see chi and they say and every time. And you need to remember as well that that chi can mean and, even, or also. And here's a case where, you know, he's sort of comparing the guy that he's talking to the demons and saying, well, you know, even they believe. Or you could say they also believe. That, in other words, the demons also believe. So you know, you've got a couple of options here other than and either of the other two make better sense in this particular instance. Again, because he's kind of comparing, he's doing sort of a comparison, you know, and standing up what the guy believes against the demons. You know, say, well, even the demons believe that. So in this case, though, what you've got, if we just kind of pull that out for a second, you have daimonia, and you look at those alpha endings. Hopefully by now you recognize those. You know, you may have tended in the past to say feminine, but hopefully by now you go, no, that's more than likely neuter plural. And then you got to say, well, if it's neuter plural, then is it either nominative or accusative? Well, then you go down and you see these verbs here, both of which have that third plural ending. And as soon as you see that third plural ending of they believe and they shudder, then you know that this, as long as this is a plural, it can function. It can be the subject. So you're going to take this as a nominative, and then you can say something like the demons also, or even the demons. Either one of those will work just fine in this particular sentence. The demons also believe and they shudder. So that's pretty obvious, because these are again sort of standard third person plural endings with that movable new in both cases. Doesn't need to be there, but is there in both cases. Okay. Hopefully you see that oosie there, you know, with or without that movable new. That should be pretty obvious at this point. Okay.